Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third day of our Info-OBE Summit. This is Theme 3 on Transformational Education using Technology, its challenges and benefits. This plenary session will talk about transformational education through technology. And so to help us understand better the role that technology plays in transforming students' educational experience, allow me to introduce to you our speaker. Our speaker is all the way from Australia and is the current Education Director, Asia Pacific of the Cognition Education Group, and at the same time a professor in digital education and innovation at Flinders University.
Excuse me, ma'am, Tia. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but have you turned off your sound from Vertex?
Or should I mute my microphone, sir?
No. Just give me a second. Okay, ma'am, you are okay to go. No problem. You may continue.
Okay, once again, everyone, let me introduce to you our plenary speaker. Once again, our speaker is a professor in digital education and innovation at Flinders University. She is an internationally renowned education expert who is known for her research on innovation in education and teaching. She has a strong international profile and led the 7-country Pacific Circle Consortium research project on teacher education for the future. She has developed courses and supported researchers from universities in Bangladesh, China, Malaysia, and Korea. And just like our other session speakers, our plenary speaker is also heavily involved in research, having produced over 186 research outputs. Her research on the application of technologies in a wide range of educational contexts and translational research for teaching has always had an outstanding impact. Everyone, let us welcome Professor Lindsey Connor. Professor?
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. And I'm really looking forward to this session as the beginning session to the stream on transformational education. I want to cover off on 4 main ideas as part of this presentation. The first one being, of course, what do we mean by transformational education or transforming education? Because it's important to have an understanding about what that means first, and then thinking about what trends there are in technology and how we're including those into educational practice, particularly in higher education, which has been my most recent research. And then what are the challenges and benefits that we see when we include technology right from the get-go in terms of planning and assessment for our outcomes-based approaches to teaching and learning. So let's just start off. When we're talking about transformational education, we've had a huge history of this over many, many centuries, and early philosophers such as Aristotle, and of course this is Rodin's The Thinker, talked about transformational education as actually about changing people's thinking. And right now, this is a really important emphasis to have in educational contexts because we have a lot of world problems, we have a lot of issues, and we really need to solve them. But other philosophers such as Tobin Hart have talked about how to make education allow us to think about a more socially just world. So how do we overcome some of the big issues like poverty, food shortages, water quality, a whole range of things that we need to think about. And other people, other researchers mostly, have talked about reimagining learning, pedagogy and curriculum because currency and relevance does not remain static. Things change with time. And in particular, it's important to think about how, sorry, the picture may be under my video there, but this is a photo of researchers actually working in on a farm in cattle, but a lot of engineering now is quite directed towards farming solutions that have more efficient ways of operating, as well We have people like Yang Zhao, who's talked about that there are changes ahead, particularly in not using standardization for assessment. So if we're talking about transformational education for outcomes-based, we need to be really thinking about how we assess and how we build assessment practices that really make a difference for people's thinking. So the assessment can actually drive those changes. And in my own research, I've also talked about how we can apply things like co-curation and co-creation as part of what we do, especially in terms of inquiry pedagogies and problem-solving pedagogies. And then as well, we also need to think about how changes are related particularly to changes in technology, the trends in technology, and especially now with Industry 4.0, what does that mean for us in education, and how do we incorporate those changes in technology into educational practice, particularly the way we design things? So, the use of technologies, however, must take account of these key things that are related to humanistic principles. And by humanistic principles, I mean, these are things that we need to be very aware of when we're designing curriculum and thinking about our content, the skills that we're developing, and the general capabilities all at the same time. So these are creative ways of operating, and I'll give some examples of how we can create new technologies and create new knowledge through using technologies, how we use that knowledge, skills, and capabilities to develop entrepreneurial capabilities, how we look for more socially responsible ways of operating, and particularly become aware of global issues, global trends, and being environmentally ethical. We can no longer ignore that global warming is here. It is here. There are many weather patterns and changes in other actions that are happening in the world as a result of global warming, and we must include that in our educational practice, and particularly outcomes-based practices. So I'm just going to go through a few technologies now. These are ones that have been identified in the media as being highly on trend. So you'll see, lots of YouTube videos about the top 15 technologies. I'm picking about the top 5 that have occurred in multiple trend data. But this one represents a photograph about how we can use computer-assisted design alongside 3D printing. So this is an example of where we might have multiple technologies coming together and allowing us to have synergistic outcomes as a result of pulling together multiple technologies at the same time. So in this case, computer technologies, and then transferring that to computer generated artifacts and designs. And of course, this is leading to a huge change in the way we operate in terms of manufacturing, housing, buildings. The building industry has been revolutionized through 3D printing and will be continued. Bridge building, you name it, including body parts, and the ways in which we can create artifacts in a localized way. So it will have a huge impact on the need for transportation as well. Bitcoin, you might think, how does Bitcoin actually feature in a technology case? Well, in fact, it is a technology. It's a way of creating NFTs, cryptocurrency. But in the near future, we will see this technology being used for energy trading, for tracking when and where goods are harvested or cooked, or for things like identifying if an artwork is a true artwork, or if it is indeed a copy. So how can we use this technology and this idea in our educational practice? We already know that blockchain technology may be used in the future and is currently for micro-credentials and the way we pull together assessments, but there are other ways that it can be used within our teaching programs as well. Quantum computing, again, another very sophisticated way of super processing lots and lots of data very quickly because of the huge analysis capacity that supercomputing has. And there, of course, means that there are greater efficiencies, ways in which we can process information. I guess the bit here that gets me really interested is how will we use supercomputing in engineering? How will we use supercomputing in medicine? And how will we use supercomputing to help us process information much faster than our brains can, or in ways that our brains can't process information, using lots and lots of analytics simultaneously. And we're seeing that shift in the computer-human interface where, bionics and human capacity to process information is being enhanced by computer power. So this will be an interesting one to watch, how we use this. Lithium metal batteries are going to be a game changer for how we use renewable energies. So again, this allows us to have greater capacity in storage of power, where we can have an increased range for electric vehicles, for example, probably 80% more than what they're currently doing in terms of their range of travel. And by 2025, we're likely to see these being used quite routinely to store green energy. So again, how are we greening the curriculum? How are we using these technologies, particularly to help us to make newer solutions to the same issues or same problems or new problems, but in a way that's environmentally ethical, in a way that is supporting renewable energy and renewable use of resources throughout the world. Well, the trend for smart homes and smart cities is upon us all around. And this is where, again, where we've got a huge range of integrated technologies that allow us to use analytics and sensors and remote ways of turning things on and off very easily. So the electronics industry is really excited about this trend, as well as with, of course, smart cities, which are happening all around the world. And you'll see from the range of technologies there that there's more of a networked approach to how we integrate technologies there. And I think what we will see in this trend illustrated by smart cities is that networking of technologies will become a lot more commonplace, will become a lot more in the way that we incorporate that into education, because we need to not just enculturate our students into how to use these technologies, but indeed how to generate them and how to create new ones as well. So there are some technologies that are very emergent, and this one, sonic extinguishers, has happened relatively recently within the last 6 months. Just this week, we've seen fires, horrible fires in France, Portugal, and other parts of Europe. This photo comes from California, though, where there have been also serious fires. And in this case, sonic extinguishers, where sound waves are used to blow oxygen away from fires, have been invented and developed and are being rolled out in these large fires to help control them, not necessarily eradicate them, but certainly control them better than they have been with water or other retardants that they use in airplanes. So they're very expensive, but without the processes of co-curation or co-creation, where people collaborate on good ideas and try stuff out, use prototypes, use an evaluation process and the whole cyclical process of inquiry, Without that process, this would not have been invented or developed. And so our students, our students can actually create some of these new inventions, these new technologies as well. I keep saying that. But we know that technologies can support desired outcomes. And I've just referenced Kettlehut and Tutwiler there, but there are many, many researchers who have demonstrated how technologies are indeed assisting our students to achieve outcomes that they wouldn't have otherwise had they not used those technologies. And these outcomes relate to students developing specialist knowledge, technical skills, and more generic skills and capabilities that we've heard about throughout this conference as well. And they can be categorized such as this, where in the top box I've included up here the idea that some technologies can be clustered according to the fact that they are tools, specific technical pieces of equipment, such as in science laboratories or in engineering labs or video editing, very, very specialist technological pieces of equipment, prototyping, robotics labs, you name it, even augmented reality. And at my home university, they're currently using 3D augmented reality and virtual reality to create submarines. So they're designing submarines by using virtual reality. But in the other category down here, then these are representational techniques. So there is using digital technologies to search, curate, and synthesize previous knowledge, of course, and to develop the skills of using digital information technology to represent outcomes. So, but these two boxes are not necessarily mutually exclusive. They interact, and they are very important, both very important to each other. So the important point here, though, is that in order to use these and to get the outcomes and multiple outcomes that we want for specialist content skills development, technological skills development, and general capabilities development, our students actually need to have quite high levels of digital capability. So how are we building in those skill developments to use these digital technologies that will help them to achieve the outcomes that we want and that will serve them well for their careers in the future? So now to some challenges and then to some benefits. Firstly, I think some of the challenges for educators are really about knowing what technologies they can incorporate into their own discipline areas, into their content areas, and what's trending, what is the latest and greatest, and how do we build that into our teaching programs, especially practical or application type teaching programs where we might be using inquiry and problem solving. So it's knowing how to incorporate them and putting them into experiences, learning experiences that actually matter, that are relevant and are applied to real life situations. It's about knowing how to link the use of technologies to achieve outcomes of relevance. So again, that networking idea that I talked about in the smart cities, how do we use that concept of networking, pulling things together, connecting ideas, because technologies enable us and help us to connect ideas much better than we've ever been able to do before, because we can search, we can use search engines, we can use AI to help us to gather and sort information very quickly. So the other challenge, huge challenge, is to design assessments that actually combine those specialist skills, the technological skills, or specialist knowledge, I should say, technological skills and general capabilities at the same time. And in my latest book, I talk about this as a way of, you can do this through creating hybrid rubrics. And we've seen some really clear examples, particularly in engineering, of where this has been done very effectively. So very useful way of doing that, and keeping in mind that with outcomes-based education, we always start with the outcomes first. And so assessments can be used to help drive what skills and technological knowledge students need. And then we step back and we staircase which technologies they need to know about and why and how they can go about doing that after that. So some great outcomes can come, benefits, particularly, I've put this food picture in here because we all want to have high quality food. We all want to have high quality water supply. We all want to be able to access energy at a reasonable cost. We all want to be part of a world that is creating sustainable practices. And through using technologies, it's not the be all and end all, but through using a range of technologies, it will help to create some better learning experiences for students in a world that they are already immersed in. As I have said many times, it's important that technologies are applied to more relevant and authentic real world experiences to help solve those problems, and apply them, or applications of content and skills, to advance knowledge, so that our students are both co-curating and co-creating new knowledge as part of what they do in their coursework or their learning. And this happens both in the compulsory sector now and in higher education. Even very young little children are co-creating games, for example, or co-creating ways of working together. And technologies can enable us to collaborate more effectively, communicate more effectively, create more effectively, and undertake critical and computational thinking to solve problems. So just quickly, I'd just like to mention, because if you'd like to follow up on some of these things, I provide a lot more detail and a lot more examples, and I invite you and would love to share these with you. But of course, there's such a short amount of time in this presentation. But in this book, there are a lot more examples of specific activities, specific examples of designing to build technology into curriculum, how to design to build a range of pedagogies into curriculum, and then how to design assessments that effectively assess the multiple outcomes that you want to assess simultaneously. There are lots of challenges for educators, not least of which is to think a bit more laterally in terms of combining disciplines and combining different technologies, but not insurmountable. And there are also challenges in terms of understanding how people learn most effectively and how we build that into learning design, especially when we're building in technologies as well. So lots to think about. And the final chapter is suggesting some further ideas for research. So those of you who are interested in doing more research may be interested in that one. Well, I've come to the end of my session. I hope I haven't gone over too much time, but thank you so much. And I've put my contact details there. Please do contact me. I have a video about my book on my LinkedIn website, so you're most welcome to look at that as well. Thank you so much.